You're driving back home with your gun case lying in the passenger seat. Suddenly you hear a siren and flashing blue and red lights hit your rearview mirror. A police car approaches you from behind and signals you to stop. As you pull over the car with nervousness seizing your body, the first thing the officer asks you is that a gun case? Now, what should you do? Should you tell the police officer whether it contains a gun or not? In order to avoid trouble, you should know 5 tips in order to protect yourself. Tip number 1. Be honest and upfront. Before exploring our first tip, check out this footage.
Hey, how you doing? I got my hands on because I got a valid CCW. I got a loaded firearm on my right side inside my waistband. So, yeah, absolutely.
An officer stops this guy at a traffic stop and asks him about his firearms, and the citizen goes on telling him everything. Now, watching this footage may have made you uneasy and you think that he's doing something wrong. Don't tell police officers about the gun and practice your right to remain silent. You might be screaming these sentences in your mind. But there's a catch. You've got to be honest and upfront with cops if you're holding gun cases. This is the first and most probably shocking tip that could save you from getting arrested. Suppose you're speeding and an officer stops you. You pull over but didn't tell him that you have a gun case in your car. According to the Supreme Court order, an officer has the right to ask you to step out of the car and pat you down. He could also check your car compartments to find any suspicious activity. Now, it's not violating your Fourth Amendment right. If they find the loaded firearms on you or in your car unexpectedly, they could become alarmed. Remember, they also have a family at home. They also want to remain safe so that they can get home daily. They face a lot of cases where they or their colleagues are threatened by different suspects.
That's when all hell breaks loose.
No!
He pulls a gun on the officer. She begs for her life.
No!
So, if you're not honest about your firearms, the cop would feel threatened when finding it on his own. Not only this, but if you make furtive movements after telling the officers you have guns in your car, they could arrest you. Watch this footage where the girl got arrested because she was doing furtive movements with a gun beside her.
It's on you.
Yes, sir.
Where's it located?
My right hip.
Walk backwards to the sound of my voice. Take a step right. The reason why I'm pulling you out of the car is you're making a lot of movements in there. Just kind of raising some red flags, okay? Put your hands on my car.
So, notifying the officer that you have a gun case should be one of the first things you do when they ask you to pull over. Be honest. Good cops will let you go due to this honesty. But there's a few cops who are thirsty to arrest people and meet their quotas. So how do we deal with these officers? Well, our next tip is going to address that. Tip number 2, avoid using conspicuous containers for your weapons. Now, this is the most helpful and is also the best way to save you from warrantless gun case searches. So, I know it sounds a little weird. Don't use gun cases at all. Well, let me explain for you. The biggest mistake that most people make is putting your weapon in a case that screams, "I've got guns." The Supreme Court has actually allowed officers to search containers without a search warrant under the single-purpose container doctrine. You might be wondering what the heck that is. Well, a single-purpose container doctrine is basically any container that literally announces that it contains something illegal or suspicious. So, if you have a gun in a case that literally has the shape of a gun, it comes under a single-purpose container. With this rule, there's another thing that makes an exception for warrants: plain view doctrine. Basically, anything illegal police see in plain view can actually be used against you. For instance, let's suppose a police officer comes into your house and you open the door. The police peek behind you and they see a glass mason jar containing drugs. Can they use it against you in court? Yes. Can they use it to search the rest of the house? Also, yes.
Hold up, I think I see something. You have the right to remain silent. Everything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law.
Anything police see under plain view doctrine gives them enough probable cause to search your property without a warrant. Now, here's the catch. It's not actually a settled law. Courts have been divided into how cops can actually use this single-purpose container doctrine. The 9th and 10th Circuit Court of Appeals has stated that a container can only qualify for a single-purpose container doctrine if it passes from an objective and reasonable person's point of view. Okay, what the heck does that even mean? Well, it means that if somebody other than a trained officer sees a container and thinks it contains something illegal, well, then it can be identified as a single-purpose container. But the 4th and 7th Circuit Court of Appeals have stated that a container can be determined as a single-purpose container from the objective point of view. That means that it's an officer's opinion now, and the court will accept that as it is. So how exactly can you stop your container from being searched and analyzed? Well, here's the trick, and this is why you see it in movies and TV shows all the time. Use a guitar case or any ordinary case like a general storage box or sports kit. Just take a look at this footage where this man is showing his ideal gun case. Use inconspicuous cases that aren't branded to avoid any plain view doctrines from being utilized against you from cops walking by your vehicle or passing you in traffic. It's also a great strategy to hide things in your home so that they can't spot them in plain view. Tip number 3. Make sure you use the combination lock on the gun case. So this is going to be really interesting for a lot of people, but it's also one of the easiest ones to follow. Just use the combination. There's 2 kinds of cases, one that uses a key and another that uses a combination. The key is really easy to open with specific tools that police have access to, but the combination is a little bit more difficult. And if you have a complex and long combination, officers will feel discouraged to open it without your consent.
You remember the passcode, and this one is going to be 987 for this box.
Let's suppose an officer stops you on a traffic stop. He asks for your documents, and while waiting for you to take them out, he sees a case. Now, your case is simple and doesn't come under the single-purpose container doctrine. The officer has stopped you without any reason, and he doesn't have any probable cause against you. So, the stopping officer asks you to give him the case. Now, you could give it to him and state that you're practicing your right to remain silent. Here, you're complying, but you're also trying to make sure the cop doesn't perform an illegal search. There are chances that he would not try to open your case due to the combination. But if he starts trying, you should call your attorney. Your lawyer will tell you how to deal with this issue and will tell you your rights. Now, speaking about rights, here's our 4th tip. Tip number 4. Know your state law and extra protections. Here's the thing, this tip is a lifesaver for most gun case owners. Did you know that some states actually give extra protection to your 4th Amendment rights? Yes, that's true, and it's also great news for people living in these states. 29 states provide more privacy and more 4th Amendment rights protection than the US or federal law provides. So if you live in a state where you have more rights and protections, you have the upper hand in stopping officers from searching your gun cases. You can simply exercise your 4th Amendment rights and say, "Officers, I do not consent to search my car or any content inside the vehicle," which obviously includes your container too. In these states, you can actually sue officers if they force the search and seizure without a warrant. There are a lot of cases where people sue officers on illegal arrests and receive the settlement money or compensation.
In all, she received a payout of more than $57,000.
On the contrary, if you live in other states where your state law does not give you extra protection, well, then you're in big trouble. Here, there's not much that you can do. The officers can use the single-purpose container doctrine and can search your vehicle and containers without a search warrant. So, what's the major takeaway here? Always remember your state's law. This helps you make wise decisions during warrantless searches and illegal arrests. Tip number 5. The proper documentation strategy. So our last tip seems innocent enough, but it's actually a giant. Remember that your documentation isn't just paperwork, it's your first line of defense. Suppose you're carrying guns from one state to another, and the police stop you at a checkpoint. They approach you and ask you to open your gun case. Is it okay to open it? Or can you exercise your 4th and 5th Amendment rights? Well, as we've seen, each state's laws can be different. Carrying guns might be legal in your state, but not in the one you're going to. So what should you do in this situation? First and foremost, know the state's law before moving between states while carrying gun cases. The second most important thing to do is to have all of your documents ready with you at all times. Let's just take a look at this example here.
Everything came back clear. Do me a favor and just be more cognizant of your stop signs. It's a particularly hazardous violation. Just make sure you stop all the way, okay?
Thank you.
All right, take care.
The officer stopped this girl and she calmly told them that she had a gun on her right side. The cop asked for documents and she provided all the necessary documentation in one go. Police verified all the documents and asked her to leave. Why? because she had all of the verified documents to carry and transport guns with her. So, what's the key takeaway from this example? Keep your legal documents, including your ID, driver's license, gun license, insurance, legal permit, and gun purchase invoice with you all the time. At this point, you must be thinking, I shouldn't buy any guns in the first place. But here's a simple fact. You don't have to feel paranoid. Instead, you should feel prepared. When a cop comes up to you and asks you about your gun case, remain calm and follow the 5 tips we've discussed in the video. Let's quickly review them for your convenience. Number 1. Comply with officers and be honest about you being armed if they already have probable cause against you. Number 2. Always store your guns in discrete containers that cannot pass the criteria of a single-purpose container. Number 3. In place of a key lock, go for the combination on your gun case. If the officer is illegally stopping or searching you, use your right to remain silent and call your attorney. Every state has different laws regarding gun cases, so know about your state's laws. Number 5. Make sure you prepare all of your documents in advance. Knowing your rights can make a big difference and serve as your final line of defense. To know more about your rights, watch this video. Till next time, stay safe.